Robinson, I thank you for this opportunity for you to open your home up to me, Lord, to come and just have a minute to discuss some of the things about Omega. As you know, we're coming up on our anniversary, the Omega anniversary of November 17, 1911. It's when we founded our fraternity, where 4 charter members came together and decided to form Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the greatest fraternity of all times, as you will know. And with this, we would like to come together and ask you some questions. We call it a questionnaire. And what we do is a Q questions. We ask some of the things and your memories and your experiences in Omega. We want to begin to capture some of the memories that all of the charter members of Gamma Pi have had through their experience in Omega. So again, Brother Robertson, I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I've had several years to have been in this organization, the overall fraternity. My entry into the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated occurred back December 1, 1963.
You've had a lot of years.
And yes, it has been all wonderful years to be in the organization. As a matter of fact, I happen to be wearing the original, well, let me put it this way, it represents the original time of entry into Omega Psi Phi. But this shirt and other items that you see on the wall, etc., came from others, one of which is a cousin who he says I was a mentor for him some 30 years ago. But Elizabeth City State University now was Elizabeth City State College back in the 60s. And I went there in that year of 62, 63, but I had transferred from Hampton Institute the year before. I had considered something in the realm of military. As a matter of fact, I had gone into the Persian Rifle Society.
Oh, really?
Back that year, but then I decided to move to a university or a college then not so far away, some 40 miles. And we had, at that time, 5 young brothers who wanted to be an Omega Psi Phi member. We were of the same consideration for why we wanted to be it, and the options were back then as great as they could be, because all of the fraternities were building, and for us to have, us meaning the 5 brothers, other fraternities were having similar small lines come on board.
And are these fraternities, you're talking about like Alphas and the Divine Nine, right?
All of the Divine Nine.
Okay.
They're coming on board, but they had similar small lines. And as I was then coming into an organization that originated on campus in 1954.
Okay.
So that's when they happened. Now, on the back of this shirt, you'll see that our line had the name placed on us for the determined 5.
Oh, that's interesting. So they were always giving names, even in the 50s they were giving names to the lines.
Right.
That's interesting.
So in that, these particular photos here were made back in the 60s. They were reprinted, of course, from the newspaper, but it was a big deal even then that the HBCUs having the Divine Nine on campus, they made newsprint for the general public. And on this particular one, they had my information printed as Brother Robinson, a sophomore, having come from Hampton Institute.
That's right.
I grew up in Princess Anne, Maryland, which is a new piece of what was occurring then. I left my high school, Somerset Junior Senior High School,
Right.
which was on the campus of then University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
Correct.
It was Maryland State College there back then. And when I came over to Elizabeth City, and I was into a lot of finding new friends, going in a direction that I felt would be good for me in the long haul. And I felt that out of those organizations that were available, that indeed I would be better fit for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. I had a high school teacher who was an Omega.
Okay, so there was some influence there.
There was some influence. And he was my high school industrial arts teacher. It came to be that when I went off to college, I went as an industrial arts major.
Okay.
And Monty Campbell showed me the way to Hampton Institute back then. And so having moved over to this now college at Elizabeth City, it was very mindful of what he had done with regard to being a mentor, basically not in so much what he did, but what he said and did.
So there was that Omega fluence even then in your early ages.
Even in the early ages. And then going to Elizabeth City and finding that the president was a brother as well, Walter N. Ridley.
Right.
And so it started to fold itself over, and collectively I grew into a greater desire to be an Omega officially, and I wanted to also build on the friendships that were available, especially after I saw others of like mind.
Correct.
So therein began the structure that was made for my long reign in the organization.
And that seems to be interesting that you would say that, because as we know, that was the founder's whole idea. It was to be that influence. It was to have some type of impact on the students as students, to show them, you know, as students, they could not only be friends, but they could be scholastic, they could be impacts on others in terms of the community. And so from what I'm hearing is that this was happening even with your mentors, even with the president of the college. You kept seeing Omega in front of you.
Exactly. And then further on this report, they named me then as an industrial arts major, an honor student, member of the college choir, member of the license series committee, and chairman of the public relations and student council.
So that would make sense why even Omega would be watching you, because as you also know, the charter members, not only the charter, but the founders, they would look for students on the campus that, as you said, were like minds and similar attainments to them. So just hearing all these accolades that you're getting, it sounds like you were a perfect candidate for Omega.
I would say that if I wasn't perfect, I was trying to be. Because when you see something you want,
Right.
you go after it. And of course, all of that information that was laid out back then, it's really crazy when I think about the years that have passed since. And I go back to the college, to the university often as we're involved. My wife met her there in the registration line, and we have been together since that time as well.
Wow.
So
what was some of your initial experiences of Omega when you first came there, including meeting your wife? What was your initial experiences?
many of the things occurred because whenever there was an event at the school or away from the school even, somehow there was a drawing into the overall direction that Omega was going. I was often a part of a group that I perceived was doing the right thing. We weren't there to party, even though we did lots of that, but we knew when and where to start and stop to keep things above board and be viewed by the rest of the campus as a group that had their heads on straight. So at the events that were on campus, I was often selected to be an escort to different events that included the hierarchy of the school.
Right.
And then organizations plus. So it was then also an opportunity for us to show to the community by visitation at the high schools especially, and be mindful of the fact that we could bend the minds of kids in a good direction. We were often led to activities that are more in tune with society as a whole to see how we fit.
Right.
And oftentimes, after having made these trips, we would return, and that would be a collective review of what we thought we saw, and sometimes told what other things we might have seen had we looked closer.
When you look closer to those things, what do you would say in all that you were doing? What is the most memorable thing that you did on that campus?
The most memorable is really difficult to say what was most memorable. What is memorable is that the size of the school at that time is far less than it is now. But even then, we knew our way to the library. We knew our way to the chapel. We knew our way to venture into the discussions with other groups, and therefore we felt that we were charted for something greater than what was then.
Right.
My development over the long period of time from then to now is kind of similar.
Right.
To say that because of the molding that occurred then, I am kind of on the same path even now, that I know what is good and moral and
So you speak about the morals. I would like to pause there, and I'm going to go off a little on the interview and just ask an impromptu question. Where we are now as Omega and where you were when you were first initiated, do you feel we are in the same place in terms of the brand and what we look like to the open eye?
I think we have grown. Now, the world in general has changed. So, likewise, our fraternity will have shown some degree of change. But I believe that because of the turmoil that occurs in everyone's life, it causes you to grow, and in doing so, you're looking inwardly as well as what you see on the outer shell of every man, every woman. And collectively, the unit of brothers assist in causing you to be a better person than even you might have considered yourself to already have been.
Correct. And you know, that again is, you're continually hitting on the hopes of the founders, is that this fraternity would enhance the student mind, his actions, his ideas as he grows in the brotherhood. And as you said, that influence would come from other brothers that are older than you as they mentor you and take you through that life. And that steers me into something else. I know that you and some of your chapter brothers that were in Elizabeth City and other chapters were good friends. There's about 21 of you.
Yes.
And you guys got together, and I'm leading into this question. There was a chapter that was started, and you are one of those charter members. And I would like for you to talk on the starting of this chapter, but where did you fall in this? What convicted you, along with the 21 charter members, to form this? And what was your mind at this time? If you can just share this chapter and the start.
Okay, when I came into the county working for the Prince George's Board of Education as a high school teacher, I began to look even more at the idea that I could be seen as a plus for the school in which I worked. And I became aware of brothers in other schools and some that were not in the education field, and their wives, my wife, we were a unit back then that the size of the organization at that point in time was a real advantage, because we knew each other more intimately than somebody you see on the street who happens to let you know that he is a brother.
Right.
because you had this tie that it was not just between you and that brother, it was between the two brothers, their wives,
Correct.
and then almost immediately, because back then I had kids as everyone else was having, and our kids
You
came
had to build that
together,
bond
and we were a full-fledged unit that always did for each other, meaning the total cluster of people. And so when we said we were going to make this happen, meaning bringing the organization to an official site in Prince George's County, I wanted to be a part of the chapter membership on its initial venture. Now, over time of...
And what was this chapter that we're talking about? I wanted you to lead into there.
Okay. Gamma Pi. It was named by the structure from headquarters down through chapter, down to the chapter. It was suddenly a place that we could all lean into when we needed camaraderie, when we needed a place to uphold our oath that we had prior to getting to Gamma Pi. And so the number of individuals that we started with at 21, we suddenly began to grow as others saw who we were. They knew what we were from the visual, but it made you understand even more so that this opportunity that we had been given was one that we needed to definitely work in order to make it live in a way that everybody who came later could be proud of.
And I can tell you that I'm proud because I'm actually what we call a son of Gamma Pi, and I came through the chapter into the fraternity through this chapter. So I hold a great pride towards Gamma Pi in that way and wear it on my sleeve with great pride. So Brother Robinson, we were talking about my first me being initiated into Gamma Pi. That's why Gamma Pi is special to me, as we know that Gamma Pi was started in March 5th, 1973. We know that we have an anniversary coming up, as well as we know that in November 17th, we have another one because that's special to all the fraternity because that's when we were founded, November 17th, 1911. But there's something more that I want to talk about Gamma Pi. There's actually another charter member that is a part of the fraternity that you may well know of. And who is that?
That individual is Donald Herring. And Donald and I, at Elizabeth City, the first year that we were there, he was in a different major. So he then switched over to a major that was the same as my own. The fact that that occurred, it had him unable to become a brother at the same time as I, even though we were at the school at the same time. So we had been collectively peas in the pod, so to speak. From that time, I don't know that there's a brother that and I say I care about all of the brothers, but because we were so close in the same major, we knew each other truly from the standpoint of up and about doing the same things. And I worked, as a matter of fact, in North Carolina initially,
Right.
and he came to Maryland initially. Now he's from North Carolina and I'm from Maryland, so we
So
were
the-
opposites, but we stayed together rather than apart. And when I came back home, so to speak, being from Maryland, we therefore got to be even closer than we were while at Elizabeth City.
I think you have a deeper relationship because in terms of, not many people understand this, but in terms of the fraternity, you always have a neo and then you have a pro fight.
Yeah.
So what was that relationship?
I'd like to think that it was good on both sides.
So were you the pro fight?
I was, but I treated all of the guys on that line the same. So it did not matter that my position would cause me to have him or any of the others lesser. One of the things that I had always, and still remain that way, thought about is that there's a song that goes something like, "Why did they treat me so bad?" Well, I did not want to be a carrier of that, so I said everybody would be treated the same. And when any neo wanted to seek out assistance, they could use me as an example by saying, "I'm not doing this because Robinson told me not to."
Okay, good.
But yeah, Don and I, we have that.
That common bond. And
It's a real bond. His wife and my wife, of course, we all came out of the same shell, so to speak,
Right.
Elizabeth City.
Right.
And so we knew each other from the beginning of time, I call it, because we were there in undergrad school.
Some things have come out of this. We see a lot of things on the wall. We see your accolades, as we had talked earlier in this interview, the achievements that you made. We even spoke about some of the influences that you've had. And so along the way, sometimes for memorabilia, we carry certain things with us just to kind of be banners in our lives. And I believe you have some paraphernalia. I started to see some things back there. Maybe you could tell us about that.
Let me see if I can remember that these are some shirts that on occasion I will wear because Brother John W. Robinson, charter member for and Bacillus 1974.
And Bacillus, that we understand, is the president.
For this organization, and the super chapter is the same as Gamma Pi. Okay, so having done that particular assignment, I was then also in the county an educator. And again, as I said before, I tried never to use that standard in the workplace, but I wanted to represent. And therefore, when anybody saw me after work in this shirt, they understood why I was
The way you were.
the way I were.
Ah.
So that developing the minds of today to face the challenges of tomorrow was a good position to be in. Now, of course, you know that being in the second district, we had an opportunity to go from place to place and learn other brothers and how they represent it in a like manner. So that was a way to actually grow my field of friendships. And then at the time that the Gamma Pi decided to put together this particular university shirt for betterment of our education for the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated was built upon.
So we've gone through many things in your Omega life. We talked about why you decided to join this fraternity and what the influences were and how you came across men of like minds and similar things. You know, we've also talked about your initial memories in the chapter and what some of the special things that you've seen, especially being an educator. And you actually met your wife there at Elizabeth City and with her even to this day. And so you've built a long legacy. You've also have been one of the charter members. So your lifespan of Omega has been amazing and has been a hallmark to many brothers like myself who are very new into the organization, but watch you as you have done for the founders, as the founders wanted, an impact on men and changing lives and molding people in such a way that they themselves can be maybe in the future an Omega man themselves. So it's been a pleasure interviewing you and going through these life experiences. But I want to close out. Is there something in a few words that you could say, what has been your biggest love for Omega as we close out this interview? What would you say has touched your heart the most about Omega?
Probably the fact that were it not for men of Omega, I may have taken a different road in my career path. When I came out of undergrad school, went into grad school at the University of Maryland, I was working at the same time trying to make a impact on the kids in general. And I often say that I probably, hopefully, am responsible for having some wide number of youngsters look at me and say, I would like to be similar, if not like him. I served the county as a high school teacher. I was also administrators in several schools in the county. Andrew Jackson, Kenmore Middle, Thomas Johnson. I had a plethora of assignments prior to leaving the actual school buildings and going into the Prince George's County Board of Education arena. where I had lots of jobs there, court liaison, human resources leaders, directors of the personnel operations, and in each of those assignments, it made my ability to seek out others who maybe I would not have ever come across. In the field of education, while it, especially now, is getting a bad rap,
Right.
it has always been the thing that carried me and most of our brotherhood,
Right.
probably, fully forward, in that education is the thing that brings people together when they are of like mind to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I am certain that over those many years, 42 to be exact,
Okay.
that I did mentor, mold some bodies into being the type of individual I would be proud that somebody saw me as.
And I would have to say that that is a truth here, and we are in legacy right now. We're in the presence of legacy. Brother Robinson, I thank you for this time to interview you. It's been a pleasure. I've learned more today than I've ever known, as you said, when we are brothers, we spend time with each other and we get to learn more about each other. You have been an influence on my life in terms of Omega, more than you probably know. A brother who watched you. So I will say personally that you have molded some part of my Omega life as well. So thank you very much.
I want to thank you for coming to see me.
Yes.
In the way that the virus has been, I've been a little reluctant to be out there unless I check everybody's credentials.
You got to do it. You have to do it that way, because if you don't, you'll never have that safe haven.
Yeah.
So again, for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, my name is Anthony Kelly. I've been initiated into the Gamma Pi chapter 2008. I'm with one of our charter members, Brother Robinson, who also came through Lambda Gamma. So I would get Lambda Gamma, and he is a very vital part of this chapter, and we just thank him again for your opportunity to interview with you. Thank you.
And thank you again.